and the story is shorter and the vocabulary is a bit more simplified than A Thief in Pollinator Paradise. These books do have instructional materials that go along and a PowerPoint that goes along with them. But if the students that you're working with or the children that you're working with might have trouble with the vocabulary in this book, this offers an alternative for students perhaps even as young as 8 or 9. Certainly it could be shared with students that young, with teachers reading it or parents reading the stories with them. A Thief in the Meadow, a step-up companion book to A Thief in Pollinator Paradise. Important work is being done by these flowers and insects, the Meadowians. In fact, they are so busy photosynthesizing and pollinating that they don't realize the many products that have gone missing from their peaceful meadow environment. Join these northeastern meadow dwellers as they make observations and collect evidence to identify a sneaky thief in their midst. A step-up companion book to A Thief in Pollinator Paradise. Prologue. You know that animals can move, react, and communicate. But do you know that plants can too? They just do it differently. The story you are about to read shows some meadow dwellers, Meadowians, and the conversations they might have. Who's who in the meadow? Campsis radicans, trumpet creeper, Minarda didyma, Oswego tea, Echinacea purpura, purple coneflower, Pysanthium incanum, mountain mint, Taraxum officiale, dandelion, Lamentis archippus, viceroy butterfly or roy, Populus section agiaros, cottonwood, Pinus strobus, eastern white pine tree, Lobelia cardinalis, cardinal flower or lobelia, Argiope aurantantia, yellow garden spider or goldie, Asclepias syriaca, milkweed, Danus plexippus, monarch butterfly or archie, Aguilera canadensis, wild columbine or collie. Zzz. Do you see how fast the thief in the meadow is stealing? The other meadow dwellers, Meadowians, don't even notice. Crack! The big pine tree dropped one of its branches in the night. The meadow flowers resting nearby sensed the disturbance. Did you hear that crack last night, Lobelia? Asked Collie. Zzz, zzz. Yeah, I think the big pine over there dropped one of his branches, said Lobelia. Zzz. Despite the noise of the preceding evening, the new day saw the usual rush of business in the meadow. Zzz, zzz, zzz. The next day, like all days, was busy. Flowers photosynthesized, birds called out, claiming their territory, bees and butterflies searched blossoms for nectar and cross-pollinated the flowers along their journey. Most flowers were happy for the visits. Zzz. But Lobelia was not happy. Zzz. She did not welcome Roy, the viceroy butterfly, as he approached. Bzzz, zzz. But when Archie, the monarch butterfly, floated over, she offered her nectar to him. After Archie sampled Lobelia's nectar and pollinated her flowers, he floated over to sip some of Si's nectar. Si greeted him. "How are you, old friend?" asked Si. "I am well, thanks to you," replied Archie. Zzz. "You're one of just a few organisms that can feed on me," Si laughed. "Yes," agreed Archie. "The nourishment I get from you makes my predators sick, so they leave me alone." As Archie floated off, Si and Lobelia cheered with gratitude. "My future offspring, thank you," Lobelia called after him. Bzz, zzz, zzz. Through all the photosynthesis, bird calls, nectar probing, and pollinating, there was a soft buzz in the meadow. The Meadowians would have heard it if they'd stopped to listen, but they were too preoccupied with their daily business. The next day, there was a flurry of activity. As Roy was taking his flap, flap, glide around the pond, the frog in residence tried to eat him for breakfast. Fortunately for Roy, the frog tasted that Roy was toxic and let him go. Croak, croak, croak. Zzz. Zzz. Lobelia witnessed the attack and with surprise asked Roy, "Why did that bullfrog let you go? Were you too small of a meal for him?" Bzzz. Roy started to speak, but Goldie interrupted him. "Thief, thief!" she exclaimed as she zipped about. Switching his attention away from Lobelia, Roy asked, "What got stolen?" "Part of my web. I was just about to rebuild the center when I noticed it drooping because someone took one of the anchors." Goldie huffed as she crossed her two front appendages. "Yes, I see your web is flying in the breeze. Maybe the wind blew some of it away," suggested Lobelia. "Nonsense," said Goldie. "I spin the strongest silk on this side of the Atlantic Ocean." Helpfully, Roy assured her, "I'm sure we'll all be on the lookout for a web destroyer." Zzz. "Humph," replied Goldie as she hurried off to rebuild. The sun continued shining. The breeze blew. The birds chirped. The bees buzzed. The meadow flowers grew, and there was a soft buzz in the meadow if any of the medallions stopped to listen. Zzz, bzz, zzz. Zzz. "We had 2 unhappy medallions yesterday," observed Si. "Goldie's web was damaged and the bullfrog missed breakfast." "Yes, why is that?" demanded Lobelia. "Roy was on the frog's menu. Roy's orange markings are just as legit as Archie's," explained Si. "Is that true?" Lobelia stared at Roy with astonishment as she mentally compared his markings with those of Archie, the monarch butterfly. "Oh, yes. As caterpillars, we feed on toxic leaves. Surely that is what made the bullfrog spit me out. I am very glad to know you haven't been deceitfully passing yourself off as a monarch butterfly. I have newfound respect for you, Roy." Lobelia bobbed toward him gently in the breeze. Roy unfurled his proboscis for the nectar which Lobelia was now offering. "On the contrary, viceroy butterflies are survivors. We deceitfully pass ourselves off during each phase of our lives, sometimes even as waste. We live on and reproduce like I'm helping you do now." As he deposited pollen from one flower to the next, Lobelia looked at her frenemy and said, "We have a truly symbiotic relationship, Roy." "Yes, Lobelia, Roy the viceroy and Archie the monarch also help each other. Some predators leave them alone because their markings carry a warning of danger." Zzz, bzz, zzz. Bzz, zzz, 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 zzz. Now I see that Roy and I have a symbiotic relationship like all flowers and their pollinators, said Lobelia. I'm glad we have harmony, said Roy, but I've been noticing some of our symbiont neighbors are missing. There are fewer lichens than there used to be. That's odd, responded Lobelia. Fungi and algae don't have legs. They couldn't walk off. Said Cy, and they didn't finish their job either. The fungi and algae grow as lichens on the rocks to break them down, yet the rocks are still there. That is a puzzle. Come to think of it, earlier I noticed that there is less moss than there used to be, remembered Lobelia. Goldie, who had been listening, scampered over and suggested maybe the wind took the moss and lichens away. No way, Lobelia quickly answered. There hasn't been anything more than a slight breeze during the last several days. Certainly not a strong enough wind to pull lichens or moss off of rocks. I agree, Goldie replied, and I said the same when you suggested the wind took my web the first time it was destroyed. Since then, I've gotten robbed again. Bzzz, zzz. Twice came Cy's response. I don't think the wind has been strong enough to disturb lichen or moss, and spider webs are tough enough to move in the breeze and not come apart. He thought for a moment and continued, let's consider this logically. Has our meadow environment changed in any way that might make it less habitable for lichen or moss? Zzz, zzz. Lobelia, Goldie, and Cy all pondered the question a few moments. After a bit, Lobelia, yawning, replied, that is a question for another day, perennials and arachnid. It's time to shut down photosynthesis for today and focus on respiration. To Cy and Collie, she said, I suggest you two do the same. To Goldie, she said, you do whatever arachnids do. I hear that, said Cy. Goldie, always frustrated, shook her head and scurried back home. Bzzz. Cy began the morning by saying, what we know so far is that sections of Goldie's web have gone missing twice. I can see that some lichens on these rocks are missing, and Lobelia can see that some moss near her is missing. Lobelia nodded in the breeze. Archie and Roy tilted their antenna, and Goldie crossed her forelimbs and replied, Collie added, I think that we need to do some investigation to find out if there is anything else missing from our meadow. Zzz, zzz. That sounds reasonable, agreed Lobelia. Bzzz. Yes, some research. Smart, said Archie. Good thinking, Collie, Roy chimed in. Cy was delighted everyone was on the same page. He said, I'm in. Just to be contrary, Goldie reacted, how will you manage that, Cy? I can't remember the last time I saw you take a jog over to the big pine tree. Obviously, we need you guys to assist with our mission, Cy said to Roy and Archie without reacting to Goldie's tone. Bzzz. Absolutely. Roy, glide across the field and then circle around to the river, Archie continued. I'll float around the surrounding trees. We'll meet back here with a report. With 2 flaps of his wings, Roy was on his way. Bzzz, 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 bzzz. With a flap, flap, glide, Roy arrived and immediately reported lots of fluffy dandelion down and quite a few sections of cattails were noticeably absent from our meadow. Oh, reacted Lobelia. That's something, remarked Cy. Archie floated over to the group and told everyone, "The big pine tree dropped a branch a few days ago and has been oozing resin to seal up the damage. Some of that resin has gone missing." "Besides that," Archie continued, "all that fluff that carries the seeds of the cottonwood tree should have landed on the ground all over. Lots of it's missing." "That's a loud bee," said Lobelia, changing the subject. Zzz. "It almost sounds mechanical. I saw a human once with a drone. Could it be that?" asked Roy. "Oh, look," said Cy. Zzz. All now saw the ruby-throated hummingbird headed for the trumpet creeper. She drank some nectar, pollinating the flowers as she moved among them. Zzz, zzz, bzzz. And just as quickly as she appeared, she rushed back to incubate her eggs. Zzz. Day 1 through 7. During the following days, the Meadowians paid better attention to Ruby's comings and goings as she gathered nectar and tended to her eggs. Day 8 through 14. Cy, Lobelia, Collie, and all of their Meadowian friends found the tiny thief in their meadow, who was also the most nimble of pollinators, the ruby-throated hummingbird. Ah, how cute!